This morning, I have a little story for you about a child who lived in Japan. Could have been a few days ago, could have been years and not centuries, but years and years ago. We're not really sure. But this child was part of a family who owned a beautiful cup. And this cup had been passed down generation through generation. Was treasured by the family. And now this child knew that they weren't supposed to play with it all the time, that it was supposed to only be pulled out when there was an adult around. But sometimes, as children do, they couldn't help but pull it out and take a look. And sometimes, as happens with children, it slipped from their hand. And the cup fell to the floor and broke into pieces. Now, this child knew how much that cup meant to their family. They were a little worried that everyone would be sad. And so they took the cup and they hid it away, all those pieces. And the family kept looking, where has the cup gone? And they looked for a few days and they couldn't find it. And eventually the child decided they should bring it out and be truthful after all. So they brought the pieces of the cup to their family and said, "I'm sorry, I broke the cup." And there were a lot of big emotions because when things break, it hurts. And the family was a little disappointed that the child had hid the cup. And so they took these pieces and they were going to bring them out to the trash and throw them away. But as they were going outside, a village elder walked by. And he saw these pieces and he saw the big emotions that the family was holding and that the child was holding. And the village elder said, "May I have the pieces? I can return them to you in a few days." Since the family was going to throw them away anyways, they said, "Sure, you can take the pieces." What the family didn't know is that this elder had been trained in a special technique called kintsugi. Has anyone here heard of kintsugi? A couple of nods. This method is where you can take broken pottery and ceramics and use a glaze with gold dust added to it to put the pieces back together. It's painstaking. It takes time and effort and the right materials, and gold isn't exactly cheap. But for pieces that are valuable and have meaning and are worth repairing, because there is so much care, it is worth the time and effort. And so this elder put in that love and care for this cup and this family to make the repairs through kintsugi. And then they returned it to the family. And the family was so grateful. They were able to let go of some of their sadness and see the beauty in what the cup had become. Not the same as it was, but something new. And they had conversations with the child and rebuilt trust and learned how to talk with one another more deeply. Hi, buddy. Do you see the picture up there? That's the broken pot repaired by kintsugi. And one of the amazing things about kintsugi, which is a real technique, is that when pieces are repaired in this way, they actually become stronger than they were before. So this is a technique that's often used as a metaphor, but is also used in real life for strengthening things that are broken and repairing. That is our story for this morning. And there is a child here Do you want to say hi before you go back and play some more?
No, I just want to be with you.
Okay, then can you sit, please?
Okay, for a minute.
You're sitting down there. It's going to be a fun morning. So, as we heard this family bringing all of their experiences and emotions to their space and to their community, we too come into this community and this space with many experiences and many feelings. We bring both joys and sorrows and concerns here together. And as a family creates a space for loving one another, we too in this community hold one another in love through all of our experiences. We know that collectively in this community and the broader world, we are experiencing a lot of pain and destruction as our current administration is enacting policies that are hurting real lives, that are causing real pain and dehumanization. So we continue to hold love as we also speak to power and demand change in what is happening in the broader world. So let us hold space here for that anger that we are experiencing, as well as the heartbreak and the fear. And know that as we share our own joys and sorrows, that holding those sorrows together makes them a little lighter, and that sharing joys is an act of resistance. So I invite us now into a time of community sharing and support. If you have something you need held in this community, I would invite you, if you're in person, to raise your hand. If you're online, we'll come to you after we've done in person, or you can put in the chat and share with us your name, your pronouns, and briefly what it is you need held here in this space today. And Jen will bring the microphone.
Testing. Okay, thank you. Kind of a joy, but also kind of an announcement. There will be some joy brought into this area in about 2 weeks when Delphi has our program. And yeah, so Delphi's jazz concert. And April. Okay, April 26th. Okay, I got the, okay, April 26th. Okay. In about a month. Okay. My calendar is wrong. And it'll be a time for us to have fun together and to have some joy in our lives, which we do need. One other thing is I was driving around our neighborhood. I saw one of the people in our neighborhood had their flag upside down in protest to what's going on. And I'm thinking of what other ways can we protest and let people know that we are not happy. But there will be some joy coming up. So put that on your calendar and come in and smile. Thank you.
Marie, she, her, and I just want to say I want to reiterate some of what Reverend Krista had said, and this is a very loving, caring community, and I thank you all.
Anyone online? I see Janice.
Yeah, Janice.
I'm Janice, she, her, and I have some sorrows and a joy. A week ago, one of my friends that I walk in the pool with on an almost daily basis passed away. She was 85 and lived a very good life. But, and the It may sound odd, but the joyful part was that she had been in Florida and drove back, and she arrived home on Saturday. And as she was unpacking, she had her stroke, where she went to the hospital. So the joyful part of it was that nothing happened while she was in Florida or on the road. My other sorrow is that my husband Jerry, the 10-year anniversary of his death was Friday. And the joyful part of that is the love that I have received from this community and other friends and family in my life. And those are the things that help us get through tough times. So thank you, everyone.
And also from online, Kevin writes in the chat, thank you to last night's chefs who used kitsu, he questions, to fix the lasagna in ways that made for a loving, delicious meal. So is he saying kintsugi to fix that meal last night? Is that what I think you're trying to say?
I don't think we put any gold in the lasagna. But the thought is good, Kevin. Any other things that we need held in community today? As we hold all of these things spoken, we know that there remains so many things unspoken on our hearts, on our minds, on our spirits, and even in our bodies. So let us take a moment or two of musical meditation while we hold one another in love in this space. This month, we are continuing our conversation around practicing trust, right? Living liberating love through the practice of trust. And today, I want to talk about repairing trust. I think it's an interesting conversation to have in this place and in this time where we all are experiencing a lot of broken trust, particularly in the bigger systems. But there are models out there of how to repair trust. And I think we've talked a lot about what trust is and our call to trust as an important part of what it means to practice being Unitarian Universalist. Right? To center love. There is a part of love that can't be expressed without some amount of trust. But too often in the dominant narrative, there's this idea that once trust is broken, it's gone. Right? How many people have heard this before? Or maybe you've experienced it, right? This feeling of, you've broken my trust, how can I ever trust you again? Or for some of us, probably most of us at some point, I've broken someone's trust. How can they ever trust me again? Because trust is not only something that we give to others, but that they give to us. And there's that fear that we heard in the child who swept those pieces away and hid them, the fear that we will be judged or shamed when we've done something to break trust. The whole cancel culture, right, goes to this point of saying, you've done something wrong, and so we're just going to cut you out completely. But that's not how our faith understands trust and repair. We are a covenantal faith, meaning we don't say we believe this, and if you don't believe it, you're out. But we say we are in relationship with each other. And to be in relationship means that we are growing and changing in relationship. We talked about trust in the braving model and how accountability is part of that. In a covenantal frame of repairing trust, there is an underlying assumption that the covenant will be broken. I don't know about you, but when I sing, "Come, come, whoever you are," that line of "we've broken our vows 1,000 times," I sing it with I, because I know I have broken my vows. But I know that doesn't make me less worthy of love. What it does is it tells me I have work to do. I grew up in an Episcopal church, and there every Sunday we say the Our Father and the Confession of Sins, right? So I'm going to do a little brag moment. I've learned how to say the Our Father in one breath, right? Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Some things never leave you. But the concept of sin and breaking trust and needing that repair and forgiveness has some element of shame woven in. But this week, I've been looking at the Jewish model, or one of the Jewish models of repair and repentance, particularly as is outlined by the amazing Rabbi Danya Rutenberg. If you have not heard of Rabbi Danya Rutenberg, I strongly suggest you take a look at her things. She has a book called On Repentance and Repair, Making Amends in an Unapologetic World. She was on The View, which is a Unitarian Universalist podcast program that is put together. Her theology is very similar to many of ours here in Unitarian Universalism, but she approaches it through the Hebrew texts. And she references a 12th century Jewish commentator, also named, let's see if I can get it right, Maimonides. So Maimonides took a look at all of the Jewish texts and the laws and the codes and did a whole bunch of interpretation. Some of it not so great towards women, but some of it really, really insightful, and in particular on trust and repentance and the process of repentance. So he laid out a 5-step process to repentance. First is owning the harm. What happened? How did I harm someone else? And being able to state that clearly without any but, why, just being able to state and claim, I have hurt you. Step 2 is beginning to change. What is it that we need to do differently to not repeat the harm that we have caused? Step 3 is making amends. And this one, I know I have trouble with sometimes. And I'm going to come back to making amends in a little bit. But step 4 is apologizing. We've got 3 steps before we even get to apologizing. And step 5 is making different choices. Right? Putting what we've learned into action. Now, I've listened to hours of Rabbi Danya speak this week, so I'm only going to be able to condense a little bit into today's conversation. But I think one of the really important pieces of how she talks about the way this process is understood is that it's grounded in community. Right? It's grounded in an understanding that when harm happens, the community comes to help with this process. The community circles around the person who has been harmed. And the community circles around the person who has done the harm. And they help each other walk through the process. There is also an underlying assumption in this process that the person who has done the harm cares and wants to change and wants to not harm again. Right? Repairing trust does not work if harm is continuing in exactly the same way. Repairing trust is not for abuse. It is not currently for our current administration. They have not made any inkling that they are ready to change. That's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about trust that can be repaired because there is true love and desire to make change. There is a willingness to learn why the hurt happened and what can be done differently the next time. And Rabbi Danya talks about the step 3 of making amends, right? After you've owned the harm, after you're beginning to make changes, making amends, what we see sometimes in our dominant culture here, which is very white, heteropatriarchal, colonialist, is the person who's done the harm says, here's what I'm going to do for you. But in this model, the person who's done the harm needs to go to who they have harmed and asked, what do you need for repair of trust? That is a very different conversation. How often have you been asked when you've been hurt, what is it that you need to repair trust? It's not a part of the process we always do well. It's where I'm working on this process right now and grappling with it. And what that does is it really centers the victim. It centers the person who has been harmed and gives them back power. When I was in seminary, I don't remember the particulars, but I remember really clearly being in a class and I said something that was uninformed and hurtful, and I didn't know it at the time. And one of my Black classmates had enough trust that I would hear her to speak up and call me in and let me know what I had said was hurtful. And I appreciated it so deeply. And it also triggered something in me in that moment, something I can look back and identify as internalized perfectionism from white supremacy, which is still there and I'm still working on and have done a lot of work on since then. But I said thank you, and then I started to cry. Because it was so overwhelming, and that was the only way I could get it out. And I didn't want anyone to put the attention on me, but I watched what happened in the room through my tears, and everyone came to me because I was a white woman crying. And one classmate went to the woman who had called me in. And it broke my heart in that moment, and it still breaks my heart. And I had a conversation with her afterwards about I saw that happen. And I said, I was trying to shoo people off. I don't need comfort as the person who has done the harm. I could use maybe one person to sit with me so I don't feel alone. But how do we recenter our reactions to be with people who are being harmed? This is a big question. A question that shows up in our everyday lives at times, but the question that shows up in the broader world as well. Right? As we are doing these practices of repentance and repair, how do we in this time show up to support and be with the people who are being harmed, as well as calling out those who are doing the harming? It's a lot to take in. I'm going to repeat the 5 steps from Maimonides. And again, the book, which I highly recommend, On Repentance and Repair, Making Amends in an Unapologetic World by Rabbi Danya Rutenberg. The 5 steps: owning the harm, beginning to change, making amends, apologizing, and making different choices. And this is a practice, so it takes time and space. So for this afternoon, I would like to invite us into the space of owning the harm through a ritual of music.